Greetings, Earthlings. Today we're reviewing a mixer. So today we're reviewing this guy, the Yamaha AG03. If you are interested in this mixer, it'll set you back around $150. Like always, I'll throw some links in the description. And for this video, I have the Rode NT1 connected directly to the AG03 with the input gain set at around 40%, the level fader at 0 dB. I won't do any post-processing, but I may have to boost it in post, so check the doobly-doo for that information. Now let's talk about what comes in the box. You're obviously going to get the mixer. You get the necessary USB cable. And you get some documentation which does include a free version of Cubase LE, and you will also need to download some controlling software from Yamaha's website. As far as specs, this thing has a bit depth of 24-bit, a sampling rate of up to 192 kilohertz, a plus 48-volt phantom power supply, and then as far as the gain for each individual input, I wasn't able to decipher that from the documentation, but I will have the rest of the specs up on the screen right now for you to look through. As far as the build quality, this thing feels pretty decent for $150. The top, the back, and the bottom are made of metal, while the sides are plastic with some vents along the side to keep it cool. The dials and slider are a bit loose, which I was very unhappy to see. And lastly, the XLR and 6.3mm ports are slightly loose, but it's really nothing out of the ordinary and nothing to be concerned with. Now let's go ahead and walk through all of this stuff, which may take a while because there is a lot of it. So first, on the back, you're going to find the USB port, which is obviously necessary to connect it to your computer or your tablet. And then you'll find a power port, which is required if you're running this to a tablet because it simply won't get enough power, but unfortunately the cable is not provided, so you'll need to find your own. Most importantly is the power button. So first, let's go ahead and walk through Channel 1's inputs as well as the controls. The first thing you're going to find is an XLR or 6.3mm combo input to connect a microphone or line level input. Directly beneath that, you'll find the phantom power on-off button. You'll also find a pad button, which I believe is a 26 decibel pad. Then you'll find a 48-volt indicator light to let you know if the phantom power is on or off. You'll find a peak indicator light to let you know if your signal is too loud and you're clipping. Then you'll find a gain dial, which ranges from 0 to 10. Next, you'll find a fader, which ranges from negative infinity, or muted, up to plus 6 decibels like a standard fader, and the bold line in the center is going to be the plus 0 dB, or the neutral setting. Then you'll find a compression/EQ button, which turns on or off the compression and EQ settings, which are controlled by the software. Then you have the effects on/off button, which is mainly just reverb, and that's also controlled in the software. And all of these controls that we looked at control the headset input over here. Next, we have inputs 2 and 3. The first thing you're going to find is a 6.3mm guitar input, and then directly next to that, you'll find two more 6.3mm line level inputs for a single mono input or a stereo set. Then you'll find a button to switch between the guitar input or the line level inputs. Then you'll find a high-low gain switch to get your bass levels. And then you have a gain dial at the bottom right here to fine-tune your levels. As I already mentioned, you have a headset input section, a 3.5mm microphone input, and a 3.5mm headphone output. The microphone input is actually controlled by the Channel 1 controls, and if you're using the 3.5mm headphone output, you cannot use the 6.3mm headphone output. Then you have a 3.5mm aux input for your iPad or your iPhone. Unfortunately, there are no controls on the mixer or on the computer, so you will have to dial in the sound and levels on the device. And then you have the coolest portion of this mixer for me, and that is the 2PC section, and this is dictating what is being recorded or streamed to your PC. The first setting is called Dry Channel 12G, and this is sending a stereo signal into your computer, so input 1 is going to be on the left channel, and input 2 is going to be on the right channel. And this is what you're going to want to use if you're recording into a DAW and you want to process in post. Next, we have input mix, which mixes the audio so you can stream live. What I mean by that is channel 1 is going to be set to mono, meaning your microphone is going to be heard out of both the left and right speakers. Also, on this setting, if you're recording or you're streaming live, your computer's playback is not going to be captured, so keep that in mind. And lastly, the coolest one for me is Loopback. It has the same settings as the input mix, but now your computer's playback, which is controlled by this dial down here, is actually going to be recorded or streamed. Next, we have a very limited meter section, which will help you get a general idea if you're getting a decent signal or if you're clipping. Then we have a monitor mute button, which will turn off latency-free monitoring. You can still hear what's being played through your computer, but you won't hear the microphone. Next, you have the speaker dial, which is going to control the output level going to the 6.3 millimeter outputs. And lastly, you have the headphone volume control, which will control the 6.3 and 3.5 millimeter headphone outputs. As far as outputs, you'll find a stereo set of RCA outputs to run to your power amp. You'll find a set of stereo 6.3 millimeter outputs to run to your powered studio monitors. You'll find a stereo 6.3 millimeter headphone output for latency-free monitoring, and you can also find a 3.5 millimeter output in the headset section. Now let's go ahead and play with the two PC settings. So currently I'm on input mix, and I'll go ahead and play my guitar really quickly to show you what you're getting out of this, and I will also go ahead and start up a song in iTunes, and I can hear this in my headphones, but it doesn't look like it's actually getting recorded. Now I'm on dry channel 12G. I'll play my guitar and keep talking. What you should hear is my microphone is on the left channel and my guitar is on the right channel. So this is what it would sound like if you were recording into your DAW, but currently in my headphones, I can hear the microphone and the guitar out of both. And then lastly, we're on a loopback, and I'll go ahead and play my guitar and keep talking. But the cool thing about this is now I can go ahead and play some stuff in iTunes, and you should be able to hear this actually playing back. So you can loop back the audio that's playing from your computer to your recording or to your live stream, which I think is a great feature to have, especially for live streamers. So I'm still on loopback, but now I've connected my iPad to the 3.5 millimeter aux input. As I already mentioned, there are no controls for the aux on the mixer or in the software, so you have to control it on the device you're playing audio from. So I'll go ahead and play some music on my iPad really quick, and you should be able to hear this. You can go ahead and increase it on the iPad. And then while this is playing, I should also be able to play some music from the iTunes as well. So let's go ahead and do that. So you're hearing both, and it is just overkill. There's so much going on. But if you're a streamer, this is an insanely useful feature because not only can you stream your game's audio, your microphone's audio, but you can also have an external soundboard on your tablet and get that audio on your stream as well. That's where I see this feature being extremely useful. So right now the fader is set to 0 dB, which is where I'm going to leave it. My gain is set at around 40%. I'm going to drop that to 0 and slowly increase it so you can hear what kind of noise is generated by the Yamaha AG03's preamps. 25%. 50%. 75%. And 100%. You can hear the cars outside. You can see here we're getting 47.8 volts through the XLR phantom power supply, and that is enough to make any condenser microphone work, so there should be no concerns there. And here you can see we're getting about 2.34 volts from the 3.5 millimeter mic input. Now to test how much gain the AG03 actually has, I have the Shure SM7B plugged directly into the interface, and I've had to increase my gain to about 95 or 96%. I've left the fader at 0 dB, and if I do have to boost it at all in post, I'll mention that in the lower third. And because I know some people will ask, now I've connected an NW7000 to the 3.5mm input. I had to increase my gain to 100% and boost the fader to plus 6 decibels to get this level. And as you can hear, there is a lot of background hiss, so microphones like this just won't work if you're connecting it with a 3.5mm jack. And the last thing I wanted to test was plugging in a 3.5mm lav mic, which I have done. I dropped my gain to about 60%. I lowered the fader back to 0 dB in the neutral mode, so it does appear that this mixer would work if you have a 3.5mm lav mic. So now I'm looking at my preferences in Logic Pro to see what kind of latency we're looking at, and with an I/O buffer size of 128, we're looking at a 22 millisecond round trip. If we drop this to 64, we're looking at 19.1 milliseconds, and if we bump it up to 256, we're looking at a whopping 27.8 millisecond round trip latency. Now we're looking at the AG DSP controller software. I'm not that interested in the easy settings, so we're going to go ahead and switch over to the expert settings. So right now I don't have any of the effects turned on. First, let's go ahead and turn on the comp/EQ. Now I've turned on the comp EQ setting, and as you can hear, it's getting quite a bit of gain reduction, which I'm not a fan of, so I would go ahead and increase the threshold to maybe negative 20 dB, and it's getting a lot less gain reduction now. The compressor is getting activated a lot less, which I'm a fan of. Also, let's go ahead and turn off the EQ because I personally don't like burning an EQ into my track. I like doing that in post, but if you are streaming live, you can go ahead and play with this on your own and get a tone that you like. Now I've turned off the comp EQ, and let's turn on the effect and see what we got going on there. So the reverb is just insane. I'm not a fan of that, so if I were using this, I would decrease the level over here quite a bit to get a much more subtle reverb if you're playing music. If you're just trying to troll people, you can go ahead and crank this all the way up. You also have a couple of different settings over here. You have Hall, which is going to be a very long reverb. You have a Room, which will make it sound like you're in a boxy room. And then you also have, what's the other one? Stage, which will also give you a very long delay, sounding like you're on a stage in an empty room. This thing also has an amp simulator built in, so I'm going to play my guitar plugged directly into Guitar 2G, and this is how it sounds. And now let me go ahead and turn on the amp simulator. So I am personally not a big fan of this tone at all. It just sounds bad. It sounds like a guitar amp plugged directly into a mixer, emitting a guitar cab completely. So if they wanted this to actually sound decent, they would need to add some form of speaker simulation as well. They can't just do an amp simulator. But also listen to the hiss that's going on through this thing. I don't see a noise gate anywhere in the software, and that's a huge problem with amp sims. If it's a software amp sim, it's gonna have a lot of hiss. So that's another thing that I think Yamaha should think about adding here. I'm not a fan of this amp simulator at all. So the only thing I can say here is if you're a solo streamer or Let's Player, I think this mixer is absolutely perfect for you. In terms of pros, this thing is just insanely versatile with all of its features. It allows you to loop back your computer's audio. It also has inputs and outputs for your headset. It has DSP effects that you can dial in the software, and it has zero latency monitoring. In terms of cons, I guess this thing could be kind of complicated for beginners. The amp sim on this thing is pretty garbage, but the fact that they even tried is pretty awesome, and it would have been really nice to see a noise gate in the software. So in all honesty, I think this is the best lower end mixer that I've tested so far because it has everything that you could possibly need to get your stream up and running. Or if you're a solo podcaster, I think this is a great option because it removes the requirement for an external soundboard. Now you can capture your theme song and all your bumpers directly out of iTunes without the need for that extra gear. Or even if you're a a YouTube commentator that just trolls people by watching videos and talking crap, this thing makes it insanely easy to capture the audio without any software workarounds. So pretty much anybody who's starting out and looking for a mixer, I would 100% recommend this over a Behringer because the features on this thing fulfill any need that you could possibly have. Alright guys, well that's going to wrap up this video. I know it went a lot longer than usual, but this thing had so much stuff in it. If you found it helpful or enjoyed it, thumbs up. If you hated it, thumbs down. If you want to influence the gear that I review next, geeksrising.com/podcastage and cast your votes there. If you want more videos, logo beneath me, check out the Discord server, link in the description, and I will see you all later. Thanks for watching. Bye.